Welcome to the Ultimate Sync Sessions, hosted by Amelia McCloskey and powered by Ultimate Sync Access, the ultimate platform for exploring opportunities in film, TV, gaming, and advertising. Join us as we dive into the sync world with the key players who shape the industry. Hey everyone, welcome to the Ultimate Sync Sessions. Today I am really excited about the guest that we have on, who's also been a guest with Ultimate Sync before. We are joined by Joshua Sutherland from the NFL. Woohoo! How are you, Josh? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I have a cup of coffee, so I can't complain at this point.
Lovely. I wish I had a tea now. I'm all about tea, being British, of course. So, do you prefer Josh or Joshua?
Yeah, Josh is good.
Josh, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so Josh worked on Euphoria while he was with HBO and Rap Shit as well. And Winning Time, is that right? Season 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who is now with the NFL. So I'm really, really looking forward to delving into all of these projects and so much more as well. But first of all, before we're going to rewind right back to the beginning, I want to see when it all started for you. Like, what ignited your passion for music? And if you grew up in a musical environment, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's so funny always looking back and thinking about how I started and how I got into music because I'm originally a pianist first. Like I'm a musician first.
Nice.
I grew up playing piano in the church. I played piano, organ, and pipe organ. And yeah, it's funny because no one in my family were musicians. Like there just wasn't anyone. And my siblings and we all started taking music lessons together. And quickly I realized like this is what I wanted to do. I was 7 years old at the time. And from then on, I just kind of dove into, what made me feel good and while I was playing. And I started out playing classical music. I was classically trained, and then I
Nice.
switched over to jazz, R&B. I was playing gospel all throughout. So it's like I was able to read, but then I was also able to play by ear. And my parents just really developed that in me as I grew up. And then I eventually went to a Berklee prep program in 6th grade, Berklee College of Music.
Heard of that.
And yeah, I ended up going to this program and got into music even more all throughout middle school. Went to an arts high school in Boston, while I was also doing a Berklee prep program as
Oh,
well, but
wow.
for high school students. And then I eventually got a full ride to Berklee College of Music. And I majored in electronic production and sound design and kind of just knew I wanted to work in post production. And, I thought I wanted to be a film composer. And, all throughout college, I never really heard much about sync, which is pretty ironic considering what I work
Yeah,
in now.
that's true.
um, and I was just like, I want to work in post production. And I graduated in 2019 and, 2020, the pandemic hit. But I was planning on moving to New York or, just kind of going on tour and doing the whole musician thing. And I had all these really big dreams, and obviously the pandemic kind of shifted it. And I was like, all right, well, let me dive into, being a composer, being a sound designer, doing what made me feel good again. And as I started making these videos, I would kind of delete all the audio from the video. I would, take this, scene from YouTube, scrap it, and erase all of the audio. And then I would do these sound replacements. And I kind of put the film back together from
Nice.
scratch. Only thing I had were the visuals. And I realized I enjoyed finding pre-existing music, like commercial music, that would work under the scene.
Okay, rather than creating it
And
yourself.
yeah, rather than creating
Hmm.
it. And I did a couple videos where I was, creating the score on my own, but I really found a passion in finding like that pre-existing commercial music that would work well. And, after getting a couple claims from, a couple companies
I bet.
saying, "Hey, you can't do this,"
Yeah.
um, I realized like, "Hey, why am I getting these claims? Oh, I have to license this music. How do I do that?" And that, curiosity kind of developed from there.
Mm.
And yeah, I eventually applied for an internship at UnitedMasters, and I got that in their sync department. And I saw the job listing in the description. First thing it said was like, "Do you enjoy making playlists?" I was like, "Oh, well,
All day
if I
long?
could get paid for making a playlist, yeah, I do that anyway. I might as well get paid for it."
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of how I got into it, and one thing led to another.
So it's quite ironic that you say that the tracks that you were putting, obviously, to visuals are probably the companies that probably pitched you now.
Yeah, yep, that is true. That yeah,
Goes full
looking back on
circle.
it, yeah.
So, do you still compose yourself sometimes? Do you get a chance to still be creative? Because I know that this job can be pretty full on. Do you get a chance to do that?
Yeah, I do. Um, I really try and work with a lot of like indie producers and indie filmmakers. That way I can still, kind of scratch that itch to film
Mm.
score and to do sound design projects, but also like uh it's not that big of a lift,
Mm.
if you will. And the stakes aren't as high.
Yeah,
I
yeah, of
know my
course.
ability, and I also want to make sure that I'm constantly giving my best to these producers and these filmmakers who are putting their heart and soul into their projects. Um, but I'm in a place now in my life where I'm like, I can actually tap some of my friends who are composers full time to do some of those jobs if, the project really calls for that.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I still play as well, and I've kind of made a side living of being like the first call for anyone who needs a sub.
Oh,
Um
nice.
and so if my friends are on tour and say they get sick or say they can't make a date, it's like, "Hey, I'll do a spot date for you." Say an artist needs a full band on a certain day, and it's like I went to Salt Lake City
I
a
love
couple
Salt Lake
months ago.
City.
Yeah, it was actually
Cool.
really nice.
I went there for
It was
Sundance. It's Utah, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
Sundance is there, isn't it?
yeah. And so I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. I can cram for a couple weeks, learn all this music, go play a show in front of" that show was 17,000 people.
Oh,
Go and
nice.
play a show
Yeah.
in front of 17,000 people,
Yeah.
and then come back to my job afterwards.
That's very
Um,
cool. It's the best of both worlds,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Hopefully, I can keep it going, but,
Yeah.
work
You must have
continues
been
to get more
tired
demanding.
doing all that and
I
then getting back to work and trying to keep up with that.
Yeah, like I said at the start of this call, I have a cup of coffee, and I feel like that's
A
kinda
million
how
cups of
I
coffee.
yeah, how I get through my days.
For sure. And so, how was it for you at United Masters then? What did your role look like there?
So my role, the team was fairly new at that time. United Masters was really building out their sync division, and so our some of our partners at the time were ESPN, um, Beats by Dre. There were, I want to say, there were a couple like gene companies that they were working with, um, Twitch, and then NBA 2K, and they were just, they were asking me to surf through their catalog, understand and familiarize myself with the music they offer,
Mm,
look up any clearance information, make sure, on the administrative side, everything was in order.
mm.
Um, and then also weeding out, what songs were good to pitch and what songs weren't.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
That
And
was a good
so,
grounding for you,
yeah,
getting
especially
into it.
looking back on it, it's
Mm.
like, how can I listen to a song and figure out if it's going to work in, a
Mm.
matter of like 10 to 15 seconds? What
Yeah,
parts of a song do I have to listen to? How do I read the audio file and make sure that this is worth me listening to or it's not worth me listening to? I feel like all those things really come back into play with my job now. Um,
for sure.
but it's funny, full circle. While I was at UnitedMasters, I got a placement on ESPN and I heard it on First Take.
Oh,
And,
nice.
we were just sending them music and I didn't really pay attention to it, but I was like, oh, that would be really cool. Like if I got a placement on ESPN. And then one day, because it was a pandemic, I woke up, turned on ESPN, First Take was on, and I heard a song that I had sent them being used as a bumper to break. And it was only like 7 seconds, but I recognized it instantly, and I was, like, screaming throughout the house. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool. It's, like, best moment of
It's a
my
good
life."
feeling, yeah.
And my mom was looking at me like, "Are you okay?" And it's like, I couldn't go back and rewind it, and it was kinda
Oh,
hard to
no.
explain, but I knew in my heart, like, that was a song that I had sent, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Alright, how do I do this for, like, scripted television?"
Mm.
And that's kinda how I got into, like, looking into studios that I could potentially work at, which eventually led me to reaching out to someone at HBO.
Right. And so did you, before you got to HBO, while you were working in your first role there, did you come up against like any particular challenges, especially while you were just starting out as well?
Yeah. There were a few challenges. I think the first one was training my ear to think about what could work for a spot, and kind of broadening my view of what sync music is. As a musician and going to school for music, I felt like
Completely
I was
different.
yeah, it was very different, and I was extremely critical
Right.
of every little thing.
Perfectionist.
Because my ear yeah, my ear was just like, "Oh, no, that's not right, that's not right." Like, I was picking out everything that was wrong, and I
Right.
was like, "Well, could this work?" And
Mm.
it's like, maybe you shouldn't be listening to every single aspect of the song, but think about the song as a whole. Think about every moment in that song. Think about the builds, the drops. What are they saying? Maybe the vocal isn't as strong, but this could work as a strong instrumental. And so just like learning how to do that and also again learning how to listen to 10 to 15 seconds of a song and figure out if that song is actually going to work or not. I was like, well, how am I supposed to listen? I was listening to about a 3 to 400 songs a day. I kid you not.
Wow.
Kid
That's
you not.
training right there.
And
Yeah.
at first I was like, how am I supposed to get through all of these songs? Like
Yeah.
each song is like 2.5 minutes. There's not enough time in the day.
Literally.
And
Still feels like that.
after yeah, even now.
Yeah.
Even now. And I was like, "All right, I was sitting down with my boss and we were kinda going through it, and I was like, "Hey, can you show me how you listen to all this music and how you get through all this music?" And he kinda showed me the ropes and, I was speaking to the team about, how do clearances work? Um, how does a licensing process work? Can you show me your short form license? Can we sit down and, like, go through this together? And so I'm really thankful for that entire team because they really gave me the best intro that I think I could have gotten into what the sync world is
Definitely.
and like how the pitching world works as well.
And I think like you always be grateful for your first break, your first start in the industry. Like for me, it was the first few, well, the very first placement. starting out as a sync agent, like that first break and that first supervisor that gave me the first break, I'll always be grateful for, because that's what opens the doors. That's what starts the whole thing, doesn't it? Like for your role there. How did that then lead to your role with HBO? How did that come about then? And
Yeah,
what a
well,
dream
I
role after
was
that. Like,
I know HBO was a real moment in time. I feel like so many things lined up in order for that to work out. Um, so I was at UnitedMasters and we were still remote, because the pandemic was still going on, but they were having people move back into the office.
mm,
And I was speaking with my boss, and I was just like, what is this position going to look like? And, we were going through, negotiations and everything. And I had taken on a bigger role there and I had been there for about 7 months. Um, and so the internship had ended, but I was still working there. And, I was thinking about that placement that I got from ESPN. And there
yeah,
were a few more that came during that time, but I always just remembered like, all right, who are we sending this music to? Who are the people that we're sending this? Who's the final decision maker? And I was like, I kind of want to be that final decision maker. And I was like, I wonder who's doing that in TV. Like, who's the final decision maker for scripted television? And, I was watching all these shows. Um, Insecure had just ended. Game of Thrones was in their final season, or I think they had just finished. Um,
such a great series.
and yeah, incredible series.
Just had to add that in
um,
there.
yeah. Euphoria
Yeah.
season 1 was going on, and we had actually pitched music to Euphoria, and
Mm,
it's kind of, again, this is a full circle moment. We had
mm.
pitched music to Euphoria, and I was like, "All right, who are we sending this music to? Like, who are these people?"
So Jen Malone.
And yeah, it was Jen Malone
Mm,
that we were sending music to. And I was like, "All right, let me try and research this." And it's funny because all of my favorite shows happen to be on HBO. And I was like,
mm,
well, I should just work at a company whose content and whose TV shows, content, films I really enjoy watching.
makes
So I was
sense.
like, well, HBO it is.
Mm,
Like I should enjoy the job that I'm doing if I'm gonna do it
I love
for,
that.
10 hours a day.
100%.
um and so I was cold calling, I was reaching out to people at HBO. I had a couple relationships, like pre-existing relationships with people that I knew who had contacts there, and one thing led to another, and I actually got in touch with 2 people at HBO, and they responded to me at the same time.
Oh, nice.
One was at Warner Bros. And one was, like, at HBO, the
Yeah.
studio, and so I was kinda working both angles. Eventually, I got in touch with someone, had a conversation with them, they put me in touch with someone else. I probably had about 5 conversations, and these
Right.
weren't formal interviews, they were all just conversations, me just meeting people who said, "Hey, I think it's great for you to meet this person," and,
Mm.
eventually one thing led to another, and, I got a call from a woman at HBO who was like, "When are you able to move out to LA?" And I was like, "Oh, funny enough, I was planning on moving out to LA anyway." I had no intentions of moving out to
Of
LA.
course not.
Side story, New York was top for me. I did not wanna move to LA. I'm from Boston. I was like, New York is where all the musicians from Boston go. Like, you don't just jump straight to LA.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, I was like, "You know what?
I'm
I'm just
already
gonna say I'm
here.
moving to LA." Yeah. Like, I'm moving I was already planning on moving to LA. I have a spot. Like, I was just flying off
Yeah.
the tongue with it. And she's like, "Okay, that's great. Do you think you could be here in 2 weeks to start?" I was like, "Can I have 4?" And she's like, "All right, yeah, that's fine. We'll give you 4 weeks, and then this is your start date." And that was it. And I had to find, a place to live in LA. Luckily, since I went to Berkeley, I had a lot of friends who were in LA, and so I started reaching out to people immediately, like, "Hey, do you know anywhere I can stay?" And it worked out that my friend was like, "Yeah, you can stay at this place. They're actually looking for another roommate. Place just opened up."
Wow.
Um, and so everything moved pretty
Quick.
swiftly.
Yeah.
I got the call in August, and I was there in October, the start of October.
Wow. That was
Um,
definitely meant for
yeah.
you then, 'cause, yeah, to it all, like, come together like that and just flow like that, for sure that was meant for you. So, I thought HBO was in New York. Is it in
They
LA? But
have yeah, so I believe their legal affairs has an
right.
office in New York, but
Okay.
their production
Everything is
studio
LA,
is
yeah.
in LA, yeah.
So being near New York, what made you not, go down the TV route, down that route instead of, say, ads where they've got a ton of ad agencies in New York?
Honestly, I had a couple mentors who were in my corner who were like, "Think about your long-term goal.
Mm,
What do you wanna work in? Do you
right.
wanna work in film and TV?
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, if you wanna do that, everything passes through LA. You might as well jump over New York and
Mm.
go to LA."
Yeah, for sure.
And so there was one conversation that I remember specifically, and he was like, "Think about your long-term goal. Think about what you really wanna do. Think about how you can sustain yourself, not just for this job, but for the jobs to come."
Yeah.
And, I really had to sit there and think about it, and I was like, "Alright, LA
Smart
is the
guy.
better long-term goal."
Mm. Wise
Um,
advice.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and while I was at HBO, um I got hired initially for The Idol, which was,
Mm.
the weekend show, the Weekend and Sam Levinson show, but The Idol had gotten pushed back, and so the woman who hired me at HBO said, "Well, since The Idol got pushed back, let's put you on Euphoria season 2
Mm.
and let's have you work on that show because they're in the middle of shooting. They have a few months left. You can work there. You can really, learn the ropes and, get your feet wet on that show because it's so music heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And then once the idol starts, you can go over to that." And so again, when I said it's a full circle moment, I had pitched music for Euphoria season 1 and I had researched, Jen Malone and learned all the shows she had worked on. And now it's like I'm working alongside Jen Malone on this show, but then I'm also working with, the music executives from Neophonic on the show and learning from them.
That's
And
incredible.
so I'm learning like the studio side, but then also the independent music
Yeah.
supervisor side.
That's very, very cool. How did you feel though? Like on your first day? Obviously excitement, but was there a part of you that was like, "Oh my days, like, am I gonna be able to like I'm the newbie here. I mean, I have some experience pitching, but like what was kind of going through your head like on your first day there then? Having just
Oh,
moved to a new
don't
city as well.
don't get me wrong. I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was absolutely terrified because I walked into my boss's office and I was working with the Neophonic team. And so if anyone isn't familiar with Neophonic, they are HBO's music team.
Mm.
They oversee every HBO production and some Max productions um, that,
They're like
you know,
supervision
they
royalty,
produce.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. They like wrote the book of
Yeah,
supervision.
for sure.
And so my first day at the office, I walked into my boss's office and he had like 3 Oscars, like 5 Emmys. You see like platinum records on the wall from Euphoria, and you see these posters of like Game of Thrones, and like uh he has like certain instruments that are signed by like these famous musicians. He has photos with like Ramin from or the composer from Game of Thrones. Like just
I knew, yeah,
it was
overwhelming.
it was
Yeah.
terrifying and I was like, "Oh man, where am I?"
Yeah.
And he's such a cool individual. Um, and, we were sitting there in his office, and he was just telling me about, what he's done and who he's worked with, and I'm just sitting there in awe, like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe I was there, and everyone at the office was really cool. They made me feel
Oh,
at home.
good.
And it was a great experience. It was a great place to learn from because again, they like wrote the book
Oh,
to
yeah.
or not to Game of Thrones, but the game of music supervision essentially. Like they really set the stage for what it is now. And so it was a great place to learn from, especially like being in LA. I feel like that's how you get thrown in the fire.
For sure.
Um, and it was a sink or swim mentality that I had, even if the stakes weren't that high. I was like, "Oh, no, I'm taking every bit out of this."
Yeah, 100%. So, what were obviously Euphoria, amazing show. I've seen it myself. It is literally wall to wall music.
Yeah.
And amazing, God, massive, massive artists as well.
Yeah.
Huge. I'm like, oh my days, this is just like couldn't have got such better artists throughout the whole thing. And some indie artists as well. So it was nice to hear like a good mixture. What was like the main what was the main role that you had working on that?
I think for me, my main role was being a pest to everyone who worked on the show and asking everyone questions and trying to learn as much as possible from everyone that I came in contact with.
Yeah.
Um, I even if I didn't have clearance to do this, I was literally talking to I was talking to everyone in post. I was talking to like Jen Malone and her team. I was talking to the Neophonic team. I was talking to the HBO execs. I was I was just talking to every single person possible. Um, except for Sam Levinson. I never made it that high up,
Uh,
but
there's still time.
like yeah, there's still time. And I did end up meeting him when I was working on The Idol, but like, yeah, I was really just learning from everyone. I was
Yeah.
asking everyone questions. I had tasks that I had to do. It was definitely more of like an administrative role,
It's supporting,
because I
yeah.
was so new to the music
Mm.
supervision world. But
What a great show to
again, it
start
was
with though.
yeah, great show,
Yeah.
especially because it's wall to wall music and, looking at the budget and,
Yeah.
again, from the studio side, making sure, things were going smoothly and assisting the music supervisor
Mm.
any way possible.
Yeah.
And then working with the music supervisor, listening to music, learning how to put briefs together, learning how you should reach out to people versus how you shouldn't reach out to people. Who's really your main point of contact? If you want something done, who do you really speak to? Who holds um the most weight in the room? So like learning all those
And
things
who
came
is
in
that?
handy. Well, it depends, I think the music supervisor, and I've learned this now even in my role, we are just an extension of the editor and the director.
Yeah, it's true.
They are the
Mm.
ones, and the showrunner. They are
Yeah.
the ones who make the final decision.
Mm.
You want to make sure that you're walking hand in hand with your editor. They are the ones who really, shape the picture that the director, the producer, the showrunner is going to see. Um, and so, just making sure you have a good relationship with everyone in post is just super important. And relationships in general in the industry are just really important.
It's true. So, what would you say was the biggest lesson that you took away from that project, from Euphoria?
Ooh, um, man, there were so many, but again, I think it's just relationships are so important. Because everyone who worked on Euphoria ended up working on The Idol.
So, at least then you were able to work on that with more experience, more base knowledge, and you knew who were the people to get stuff done, right?
Yes, yes, that and also, like, if I and I didn't do this, but like you see this all the time. Someone badmouths someone on the team, and you end up burning a bridge. And then all of a sudden you think, oh, I'm going to another show.
Right.
All of a sudden, that person you badmouthed was actually hired for that show that you're working on. And now
Oh no.
there's a bad relationship, and you may not get along with that person as well anymore. And that could
Yeah.
affect your workflow. That could work another show that you could be potentially hired for. Um, and so and again, that's just what I've seen over the years working in this industry now. But I realized then, like, oh, I'm glad that I have a good relationship with everyone on the show because I didn't know they were moving over to The Idol. I
Mm.
just I was like, "This is a good show. I'm excited to be here. I wanna make sure, I'm in good standing with everyone because these are genuinely good people, and they are great creatives." And so, I just wanted to be a part of that, and it worked out that when we moved over to The Idol, we all already had a great rapport.
Yeah, that's really important for the flow, for sure. It makes a
Yeah.
big difference, doesn't it? So, were you able to get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty with the Idol? With some of the clearances or the sourcing of music and that side of things?
Yeah, I was. And for anyone who knows Sam Levinson, when it comes to music, he knows what he wants. And you partner Sam with The Weeknd or with Abel. It's like it is going to be a music heavy show. And then Mike Dean was a composer. And so a lot of it was just like, all right, well, what's being scripted? What do they hear in the show? All right, let's go out for that clearance. And for that show, I was working with Manish and Tom and as well as the Neophonic team. And so it's like, all right, well, what's scripted? What do they hear? What do the editors hear? All right, let's go out for that clearance. Let's just get that out of the way. That way, whenever they do shoot, they know it's already cleared. They know if they have on cameras, and there were a lot of on cameras. It was like, let's just make sure that they're able to shoot and keep the stress for them as low as possible. You
Yeah,
want
of
to make their
course.
jobs as easy as possible. You don't want them to think about the difficulty of, if this song is cleared or not. You
Yeah,
just wanna be able to say, "Hey, this song is good to go."
that's good, yeah, 'cause that's where a lot of the stress is
Yeah,
is the
yep.
clearance side and trying to get it over the line really, isn't it? And so rap shit as well, what was the biggest takeaway you took from working on that?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed working on Rap Shit because we were focused on finding artists who were based in Florida,
Mm.
especially, like, Miami, and, yeah, there was just, like, a because Issa really wanted to highlight artists from that area and the show took place there, it was like, let's do as much research as possible to find these artists.
Yeah.
Um, and that helps me now in my job at the NFL because it's like, all right, if there's a big matchup between, let's say the Steelers and the Chiefs, like who are some of the biggest artists from
Mm.
those regions? Let's try and figure that out. Or we have international games. Who's the biggest artist in the UK right now? Who's popping right now? Let me do that research. And so I learned that really from working on rap shit. Like, how
That's
do I
cool.
find those underground artists? How do I keep doing that deep dive into like who does this person listen to? Who are the high school students listening to?
Yeah.
Who are middle schoolers listening to? Like, I learned all of that from rap shit.
And how did you do the deep dives? Where did you go to do those deep dives?
Um, I love using the song radio on Spotify.
Mm.
I'm a huge Spotify user. I think, I love their user interface.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would use that. I would use social media, SoundCloud, um TikTok wasn't as big, which sounds weird to say, um, because now I feel like you can find so
I
much
know.
music on TikTok.
It's wild.
But yeah, TikTok really wasn't a thing when I was working on rap shit. And
Mm.
so I was just using social media, and then I was using like Google platforms, just different websites that I would find and, like different articles from like those cities. Like there was a Miami newspaper that had like a creative section that I found,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
like, who's the best like up and coming
That's
artist?
like old school.
Um, yeah, so it was cool because, I was able to do that and I actually enjoyed it. I was a huge fan of Insecure, and so the fact that I was working on that show, and, I was
Nice.
like, "Wow, this is like me working with Issa directly," even though, like, there were a couple steps before I got there.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
it was
funny.
just a great moment for me, and so I was going to sleep listening to music from artists who were from Florida.
That's really cool. So you actually worked on more shows than what you originally said. There's actually more there that you did there, that you mentioned. So there was another one that you previously mentioned as well at the beginning, Winning Sh-
Yeah, Winning Time
Time.
season
Thought it
2.
was Winning Time. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what did you take from working on that? Because probably by this point, like working on these shows, you must have really have developed a really good skill set. What was the main thing to take away from that, working on that?
Yeah, for Winning Time, it kinda showed me, like, you can really work on shows that have music that you enjoy listening to, and you
Yeah,
have opportunities to place music that you really enjoy listening to. Um, Winning Time season 2 took place in the '80s, like, the early '80s, and
that's
so,
fun.
I was working with, Gabe Hilfer and the
Oh,
Full Pursuit
nice.
team, and Um, again, working with the Neophonic team as well, but
Mm.
I was like, "You know what? I'm" like, Gabe was also, like, the top
Oh,
music
yeah.
supervisor, still is the top music supervisor in the game right now, and I was like, "Oh, man, I just wanna know how he does it."
Yeah.
And,
And
so
how
we were
does he
finding
do it?
music.
How what, is the biggest thing you took from him,
Gabe
lesson-wise?
is just a pool of knowledge.
Mm.
Like, he understands the business, he understands the music business and the studio business,
Mm.
and I think because of his strong relationships in both, that's what makes him so successful, amongst so many other things, just a genius, how sometimes you meet people
Yeah,
and you're like, "Oh,
I can see
yeah,
why. Yeah, you're at the
yeah,
top of your game.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I get it now."
Mm.
And I mean, Gabe worked on so many shows that I didn't even know influenced me as a child.
Right.
Working on Entourage or Project X.
Mm.
Like that was one of the craziest movies that I've ever seen as a kid, and it
Mm.
just had banger after banger after banger. And I'm like, how did he do that? And so, like working with Gabe and so kind of going back to the music that you love, Winning Time, I'm a huge Celtics fan, and season 2 was Celtics versus the Lakers.
Mm.
Um, and it took place we were looking for music from, like, '78 to '84, and in my opinion, those are some of the best years of music ever.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about Prince, you're talking about
I
Michael Jackson,
know. Oh,
the
wow.
Brothers
Mhm.
Johnson, like, Isley Brothers. So, just like music that I love and I, like, grew up listening to that my dad was playing,
Mm.
I was able to now use that music in a TV show.
It's really cool.
Um, and so that was just a great experience, and that it's also great because that's the last show I worked on while under my contract with HBO. And
Mm.
so it was a great way to go out and, again, all those relationships that I built over all the
Amazing.
shows that I had worked on, like talking about some of the best music supervisors in the game, the best music supervision company in the game. Like I was just able to learn from all of that and,
Yeah.
kind of bring it to where I am now.
That's really, really cool. Definitely been blessed in the music industry for
Mhm.
sure to walk straight into
Definitely
that.
a blessing.
That's really cool. So then what made you not maybe want to then delve into a little bit, well, I know that you do some indie films and stuff on the creative side, but being in LA, did you ever like just think, oh, maybe I should take on a few box office films? I've already worked on the best TV series. Why not now just take on some of the best box office films? Is there not a part of you that maybe wanted to delve a little bit more into the film side? Because you actually went completely though still TV, but the opposite way and went into sports.
Yeah. I mean, I'm someone who will never like say no
Mm.
to a project, no matter how big or how small. I think it is still a dream of mine to work on, a box office film. And, I have friends who are music supervisors who have told me, like, man, there's nothing better than going to a film you worked on, sitting in the back of the theater and watching people bob their heads to the music
That's
that you had
cool.
placed.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, that's a
Yeah,
statement right there. Like,
for sure.
I love that. And so there is a part of me that's like, you know what?
Yeah, I want to
Like at some
experience that.
point I would love to experience that. But for right now, it's like I can, go to a bar and they're going to have football on. I know that for a
Yeah,
fact. They're gonna have the
huge. I
NFL
mean,
network on.
what
If
a
the
great
TV's
gig.
on, yeah, they're going to have a song that I had placed and I'll be able to watch people bop their heads to that.
Yeah.
So
So let's now delve into this side of things. So, how did this come about? How did this role come about for you?
yeah, so while I was at HBO, um, I was just looking up, music supervisors. And I was like, who are some of the best music supervisors in the game? Just learning how can I learn from the greats, essentially? And who are the greats in the business right now? And I did the same thing with piano. Like, I'm a huge Herbie Hancock fan. Who did Herbie listen to? Okay, if Herbie was influenced by, like Art Tatum, who did Art Tatum listen to? Like, so I would kind of do that deep dive. Um, and so for music supervision, I was like, what are some of the best TV shows, some of the best films that I've ever watched? Okay, who worked on those? What else did they work on? What's another film? And so I kind of did that deep dive. Um, and so I wrote out a list and I was, cold calling and messaging people, music supervisors that I wanted to get in touch with. And I eventually got in touch with someone who was working here. And, you know, after a while, we had stayed in touch. I wasn't looking at getting a job at that time because my slate was really full. I was just looking at building a good relationship with people in the industry.
Yeah.
And then a few years, like we stayed in touch, and then a few years later, I eventually heard that there was a position that was opening up, and because of the relationships that I had, I was able to get this job and kind of step into it from the previous music supervisor that was here.
That's cool. And again, it comes down to the relationship side of things, doesn't it? But also listening to your process, you've also been very strategic in also like the research behind it and also connecting the dots as to okay, how do I get from here to there? If they're
Mhm.
doing that, I can be doing that. How do I get there? It's a lot of strategy behind it as well, which is important, isn't it? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely,
so
and I try and apply that to all aspects of my life.
Mm.
Like, I'm always constantly asking, like, "Who can I learn from?
Mm.
How can I learn from this situation? How can I make the most out of this situation? Who do I need to speak to learn the most?" And so I'm just huge on building relationships and
Learning.
asking people questions,
Mm.
just being, um, yeah, just trying to understand what's going on
Mm.
ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. It's important and it served you well, clearly. So NFL, how does the licensing for this really differ compared to, say, working on like TV series? Because um obviously it's heavily focused on like the sports side of things. So the type of tracks that you're gonna be sourcing is gonna be really different. And then you got a lot of promo and things like that. Like talk us through like what a typical day looks like for you, really.
Yeah, so the licensing process is very different in the fact that we typically clear for a specific period of time.
Mm,
So that could be a week long, that could be a month, that could be 3 months, that could be 7 months.
mm,
Um, and in TV, you're clearing everything in perpetuity because it's going to live on that platform forever. For us, because the football season is only a few months out of the year, we're typically only clearing things for the football season.
mm.
Um, and things just move very quickly here. And TV, especially scripted television, not so much reality, but on the scripted side, you're able to read the script, you can sit with it. There are going to be about 6 to 8 months of shooting. And
Yeah.
so you have time to kind of prepare. For football, for the NFL,
Mm.
we've gotten messages Sunday night. Hey, are we able to get this for Monday morning?
Oh,
It moves
wow.
that quickly.
Oh,
And
God.
obviously there's some things you can't get done in
Yeah.
that time frame, but the turnaround is just very quick all the time and you just have to be ready. And I think it's great at my age to be working at that fast pace and knowing like the football season is very fast paced. And, we always like to say, doesn't matter what happens, kickoff time is never going to move. Kickoff is kickoff. So whether the song is cleared or not, kickoff is still happening. So
So what do you
you
do?
should,
Do you have backups, obviously, like if, an option at 1, 2, 3, if that can't
yeah,
go?
we have a couple backups. We have different production libraries that, we have licenses with. So in case we do need a backup, we can pull from, one of those production libraries. But for some of those bigger commercial songs, it's great because labels and publishers understand we work in a fast-paced industry, and so a lot of times they know that when we reach out for something, it's usually a priority, it's usually urgent, and so they'll work, the magic that they have on their end to make sure that we're cleared in time. Um, and so, yeah, it's hand in hand. Again, because of the relationships we have with these labels and publishers, they're more than happy to help us and, to work with us and get things done within a timely manner. And they'll be honest, like, hey, we don't think this is going to clear in time, but here's a different option. Here's a different song that you could use that could clear within the next, 24 to 48 hours.
Wow. You're listening to the Ultimate Sync Sessions with your host, Amelia McCloskey, where the world of sync meets opportunity. Stick around for more insider insights and stories straight from the heart of the industry. So what different types of licenses do you work with that you typically fill? So obviously you've got like the promo campaigns you've got, throughout the game. Like how many tracks typically do you need to license for the season for the games and stuff?
It varies. I wish I had like a specific number, like, hey, we have 500 slots.
Yeah.
But it definitely varies. I mean, we have different opportunities throughout the season where like, we license one track each week for 22 weeks throughout the season. So, we have an opportunity where we highlight a different song on the network and on social, excuse me, every week, and it's a new track. Um, and that goes all the way up to conference championships. So that's, yeah, about 22 weeks. Um, And then we have our international games that we source music for. And sometimes that's, maybe 15 songs. And those are usually bigger commercial hits because we use those for bumpers and, we cut highlights to them. And so for bumpers, again, since it's only, about 7 to 12 seconds, you want it to be instantly recognizable. You only have about 4 to 6 seconds for people to be like, I know that song.
Yeah.
And so we really try and hit that marker. And then for our marketing promo campaigns that run throughout the season, we have about 35 of those roughly. Um, and those have different run times. They're on, different platforms. Um, but those, again, we may use bigger commercial hits. We may use, some independent artists for that. It really just depends on if they're hitting those markers that we need them to hit in that specific campaign.
So with a lot of your licensing partners, do you typically work under blanket licensing?
Uh, so because we have a license with some of, the bigger music production libraries, those are where we have our blankets with. But I mean, we're always, open to, hearing out what, different production libraries offer. There are times where we may license a track from a production library for a marketing campaign.
Mm.
Um, and they may not be covered under our, blanket license, but because again of the relationship, because we know the catalog, we're like, hey, this is someone we can reach out to. We know it'll be like an easy clearance. We know they're willing to work within our fees. And so we're able to get, something across the line working with them.
Yeah, nice. And how often do you typically license indie, and is there a lot of like instrumental cues and things as well, typically compared to say full songs, or is it really just a massive mixture?
It's really a massive mixture. I mean, we have some marketing campaigns that are VO heavy, and you just hear the instrumental bed of the song. And then you have, some campaigns where, there is no VO and it is just music the entire 30 seconds or 60 seconds, however long the spot is. And then also with social, because we work alongside with them, they may have spots that may not be VO at all, and it is just music. And so they want to make sure the lyrics hit, you know, what the theme of that spot is,
Of
what the theme
course.
of the content they're cutting is. And then for our feature films, sometimes if it's um, used as an intro song to whatever they're cutting, or if it's used in a montage, they want to make sure lyrically that song hits what they want it to. And it stems from indie artists to major trending Billboard charting artists.
Which is cool. It's good that there's such a wide range with that. And let's talk, because you mentioned about the lyrical content. You must have obviously a lot of themes that you work with because it's sports, right? Winning,
Yeah.
losing, achievement. What kind of sounds are like you really working with a lot at the moment in terms of like styles and lyrically, like aside from the ones I've mentioned, what else do you typically tend to look for?
I think, along with the themes you mentioned, anything that has to do with, championships, it's all on the line. It's time to get ready. Anything that has to do with like families getting together, because football and family just go hand in hand. Um, that works a lot. Um, but then also you have songs that don't speak about that, and the energy is just there. And they could be speaking about, walking their dog down the street, but the energy of that song
It's just
is
cool.
there. And
Mm.
yeah, we're like, well, this song could work, and we may flag it and say lyrically this may not hit the marker, but everything else is there. And so we may use that song for a spot that we know is going to be VO heavy. And our editors are so good, they can chop the lyrics of that song up. And, they may only highlight one song that speaks about, running instead of walking.
That's
And
cool.
it's like, oh,
Mm,
if you just heard that, you would think the whole song is about running. And it makes sense if they're pairing that with a spot of a football player running.
that's cool.
So yeah, it definitely varies.
And this is why having different edit versions is important, isn't it? Because it gives the editor more room to play with your tracks and stuff, and having stems and things.
Yeah, for sure. Having stems available is huge, because we've gotten asked so many times, like, "Hey, are there any stems? We wanna be able to chop this up. We wanna be able to raise, this part of the song." They aren't making they're making linear edits, and so, they aren't changing and reconstructing the entire song to make something new. They're just like, "We want the bass to be a little bit louder. Let's do that." Or, "We want everything to drop out because it's so VO heavy. We just want the kick drum to show." And so, having those stems available has become it's huge.
Yeah,
It's
it's
huge.
key, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
So how much of a say do you have in something being used? And if you feel really passionate about, I think this will be perfect here. Like, do you uh, ever get a chance to actually have your say with that? Or is it typically like, no, don't have any?
Um, I think no matter what, and it kinda goes back to the scripted side of things, like, the producer, the director, the showrunner, the editor, they're going to have the final say. I can vouch for a song as much as possible. I can give you the metrics of how well the song is doing. I can point out the, uh, dynamic variations of the song and tell you like, "Hey, this will work perfectly for what you're cutting." I can even pair it with the visual cut that you had sent over and say, "Hey, this could work." But ultimately, it's the director's call,
Yeah, it's
If
true.
they think it's going to work well, then it's gonna work well. And if it isn't, then, I'm there to support them and their dream. It's not
It's
the other way
true.
around.
It's true. So, what obviously, you've had a really wide range of projects that you've worked on. What particular one has really stood out for you that uh, a particular sync on a particular scene that you've been most proud of, that you've absolutely loved?
Yeah, like the one I can hang my jersey up on.
Yes.
Um, so for me, we have this opportunity called Sunday Spotlight, where again, we highlight a new track every week on the network. And it's a song that was released the Friday before Sunday's slate of games. And so the timing of that is super key because the song has to be released on a Friday. We have to get it cleared in time for our editors to be able to cut a piece of content to it for Sunday, for Sunday's biggest matchup for Sunday Night Football, and then they end up, cutting another piece, another highlight to it, almost like a music video, that night for a recap of the game, and that highlight or movie, music video replays on the network throughout the week, and then it also plays on our social channels throughout the week. And then as soon as Saturday or Friday hits, it has to come down, and then we start all over again.
Right.
And
Wow.
so for me, I I'm a huge Linkin Park fan.
Oh, same. Yeah. How do you
And
feel about the new singer?
I was actually a fan. I was a
Okay.
fan of her.
Yeah, no.
Um And, I not getting into the weeds of things,
Yeah.
but, like, I was able to see them live, and I was just like, "This works perfectly for football. I have to get them in a spot." And so one week, I only submitted songs from the Linkin Park single or from the album,
You're like,
and I
"Pick
was
any
like,
as long as you choose them."
"Yeah, as long as you pick one of them, just just pick one. And so that was my way of softly telling them like, hey, this
Yeah.
is where we should go. And I only submitted like we only submit 3 to 4 tracks for our producers to pick
Right.
from. And they picked the song that I really wanted.
Oh, nice.
And so we got that. But the part that I can always like, say I'll retire in music supervision from is Linkin Park reposted it on their social pages
Oh,
and said, "Thank you,
nice.
NFL, for, using our newest song."
That's really
And
cool.
I was like, in my head, they're saying, "Thank you, Joshua,
Exactly, yeah.
for, using our new song on the
Champion
NFL.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're the best, Joshua. We love you. Free tickets to any show you have. Feel free to come backstage." That's how I read that. And I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. I walked in my boss's office. I was like, you know what? This is it. Like, I may just have to leave. It's the middle of the season,
Yeah.
but I'm gone. There's nothing else that I can do. Like, that's it.
Literally, that's cool. Well, I'll have to cut down this section and I'll tag them all over it. Be like, "This is the
Right.
person that made that happen." Yeah, that's cool. So, knowing, like, where you are at now, obviously, in your career, like, what kind of biggest lesson now have you learned being a supervisor, especially, like, with the NFL? Like, what's the biggest lesson here that you've learned?
Um, Biggest lesson, and as cliche as this may sound, but like it really takes a team to get
Yeah.
things done.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do it all on your own. It is impossible. If I wasn't working with a team,
Yeah.
there's no way we would get any of this done, especially in time. I think, not saying that I don't have the ability to, but at the pace we work, at the amount of people we have to reach out to, um, the amount of detail you have to have working here, especially because we move so quickly. You want to make sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted. We just have to make sure that, or I'm grateful that I have a team to work alongside and work with that,
Gets along.
we're able to watch each other. Yeah. Yeah. We get along. We all have a great rapport. We all love sports. We're all from, rivalry teams. So, we can get into it on that side. But also like we all just want to hear good music paired with the game.
Mm,
Um,
it's true,
and
yeah.
so I'm like super grateful for the fact that, I have this team, and I work with this team. And we're constantly learning from each other. We're constantly trying out new ideas and, you know, working on how we can better each other and how we can make the game better. And, really stems from our boss who, is the executive producer of the halftime show. And so it's like really cool learning from him. And, it is top down. And we all just, fall in line because we have a great leader. And so, yeah, I've just learned like I couldn't do this on my own. I would not be able to get this done,
Yeah,
in the time that we need to.
it is a team, isn't it? And when it all comes together, it's the best feeling in the world, right? Especially when you get the songs in there that you want, like Linkin Park, for instance. It
Yeah.
makes it all
Yeah.
worth it.
And at the end of the season, we can all sit back and look at the season we had and be like, wow, we hit some record numbers this past year.
Yeah,
And the NFL, this is like a new iteration of the music team. And, there's no better time. I think, personally, I think we have some of the best music in
nice.
sports right now. I think a lot of people are watching what we're doing. And a lot of times people like to say, they're, in front of culture and they're the ones who are pushing things forward and they're the ones who are, making sure that get people get to hear music that they've never heard before and, they're on the pulse. And I think, some companies and some industries are doing that, but I can for sure say that as a league and as a music team specifically, we are actually on the pulse. We are actually pushing culture forward. When you have
It's cool.
someone like a Kendrick Lamar who
Mhm.
is, headlining the biggest show in the world, the biggest performance in the world, like he is headlining that. And we are picking music surrounding his performance to kind of uplift that performance. Like we are actually on the pulse. We are actually doing things to shape culture for the better.
And that's really cool. Like, your friends and stuff must think that you're, like, the coolest person. Do you get free tickets and stuff as well? They must be tapping you up for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like my friends have the coolest jobs. They're, in the weeds working with the artists.
Mm.
They're the ones who are, in the studios working with the artists, or they're on tour with the artists. It's like you guys are making things possible for me
Yeah.
to use
So a lot of
for
your
my
friends
content.
are in the industry as well then, as
Yeah. Yep, a lot of my friends are in the industry. They do hit me up for free
Yeah,
tickets
yeah, I
to
bet.
games and stuff. I wish I was able to say, "Yeah, sure, here you go, here are box seats."
Yeah.
Never that easy.
Never is.
I don't
Never is.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever offered box seats to anyone because I don't even have box seats.
Mm.
Um But yeah, we definitely work hand in hand. I think it is nice, when I go home and I see, like, my family because, growing up, everyone is like, "Oh, so you're going to be a musician? You're
Yeah.
gonna work in music? How are you gonna make a
I
living
think we've
doing
all
that?"
had
Like
that, definitely,
yeah,
multiple
everyone who
times.
works in music, yeah, you have that family member that's like, "So
And what's the
what's a
backup
real job
plan?
that
What
you're
if it
gonna
doesn't work
have?"
out? What
Yeah,
are you gonna do then? Like,
yeah.
you're like,
And
"Look at me
so
now,
now
hello."
yeah, it's like people hear music and they're like, "Okay," but then they hear NFL music and they're like, "Oh, wow, okay, like, that's super cool," and they're, like, interested, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
there is that benefit.
So, I once read about how you cleared a brand new DJ Snake track with 18 different rights holders just days before the NFL draft. Sounds
Yeah,
crazy. How
uh,
did you handle moments like that, when obviously the pressures and clock are ticking to get that over the line?
yeah, I mean, that was again, that was a team effort. Um,
That's an
we
insane amount of rights holders.
Yeah, that, again, when I say things would not be able to get done without having
Mm,
a good team to work with, like, literally, if one person were doing that, I don't
mm,
think they'd be able to make the deadline because there's so many different rights holders in different parts of the world that you have to
mm.
reach out to. And so it was really just like a group effort, um, and a lot of research, a lot of patience. We had a couple weeks, I think, to get that done, and, it was a newer release, so we wanted to make sure that we had it. Again, just being on the pulse of things, we're like, "What's going to be a hit, not what is a hit?"
Mm.
And so, a lot of times with unreleased music or recently released music, the splits may not be, agreed upon, and so things are still in flux, so sometimes we're pushing writers to agree to split so that we can, license a song. But yeah, again, that's a team effort. That
Mm.
would not have gotten done without a team.
No, definitely not. I mean, wow, that must have been stressful. So, like, on the surface, like, you've had such a rise with your career, but internally, like, have you ever had moments where you've had, like, moments of self-doubt, or times when you've questioned a decision that you've made, or just had, just some of those days when you just question yourself?
You mean every day or uh,
Especially when dealing with that kind of pressure and, you question, you're just like, oh my God, am I meant for this? Is this really what I want to be doing? Like with all this pressures and clearance and all of this, have you had like moments like that? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think those moments happen a lot. I think just um thinking about the fact that I started out playing piano and now I'm not playing piano every day. There's some weeks that I go without playing. And so there's a part of me that's like, did you do all of that for nothing? Like you pivoted. You are not playing piano in front of, thousands of people every day. You are not in a studio composing for hours a day working on some of these, films that are, being shown in theaters. Um and then the pressure of working at, a company like the NFL and making sure that you're, working and, doing everything you can do to make sure that the job is done correctly. Um,
A
there
lot of
there's
pressure.
definitely yeah, there's definitely that pressure. But I always just tell myself like I'm not performing heart surgery. I'm not performing brain surgery. I have a friend who is an ER nurse and some days I'll be like, I was stressed. We had, a manager who had, 1.4% of the song and he would not budge. He wouldn't agree to
That
it
is annoying though.
because he wanted more money. Yeah. And it's like, it's annoying. And then she's like, yeah, I had someone bleed out on the table
Yeah, you're
and
like, okay, you win. You win hands
yeah,
down.
I was like, okay, perspective is always key.
Yeah.
Um,
I've definitely had a few of those
but
moments actually in conversations. Not too far off.
Um, and so I'm just always like I'm constantly reminding myself like it's music and sports.
Yes.
Like
And you
you
get to do
have
this.
yeah, and I get to do this and I'm grateful to do this and I love what I do. And not only am I working in football, which was like my one of my favorite sports growing up. I never played, but every Sunday my family and I we would all get together and watch football. Um
That's nice.
it's like this is essentially like a dream job for me that I didn't even know existed. It
Yeah,
was a dream I didn't even know I had.
that's so
Um
cool.
and so always reminding myself of that
Mhm.
and just seeing the fact that I have I have an opportunity to highlight independent artists just as much
That's huge for
as
them.
just as much as these big commercial artists. I had someone come up to me and say, I was able to pay my rent for a couple months because
Oh,
of,
that's nice.
a placement that I got from the NFL.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
cool.
moments like that, I'm like, all right, you know what, Joshua, like you're doing your job. You're doing what you should be doing and you're where you should be. And that kind of helps ease the pressure that I feel on a day-to-day basis.
When that small 1% won't clear or when they won't budge on a on the
Yeah.
budget for sure. And so, you know, with the long hours and stuff and going it is long hours, it is a lot of pressure, it is like a lifestyle. You don't switch off when you go home. Because if something's not clearing and it has to clear, you take that home with you. Like
For sure.
it's
For
it
sure.
is a lifestyle for sure, what I say about supervision. How do you maintain balance though? How do you stay grounded? Like how do you switch off?
Um,
Avoid
I
you burn
drive home
out.
in silence.
I
Yeah.
do that. Oh my God,
Like
I do that all the time.
yeah, like I drive home in silence. I decide when I should and shouldn't um like watch sports, which is weird for me to say. Like sometimes I just don't even want to watch I don't want to watch anything. Like there
Yeah,
are
I
those
get
times.
that.
Um and then with sports, I'm like I find myself critiquing other sports and seeing what they're doing,
Right.
like, what I don't like. How can I implement, what they did here to what we're doing, to what we're creating? But then also I enjoy watching TV. Like, that is how I decompress.
What do you
I
watch then?
will I honestly watch everything except for reality television and anime. Those are just 2 things that I struggle getting into, but yeah, I try and pride myself on saying I watch, like, or I've seen the biggest shows of all time that people deem as being, in the top 10. Um and I'm just always thinking about, like, what haven't I seen? What do people always talk about that I haven't seen? Same thing with music. I'm like, what do people who do people say are some of the best artists of all time? Am I familiar with their discography? If I'm not, let me go through that and let me listen to it. I think that's another way that I've decompressed is going on those deep dives of who are some of the artists that people idolize. Am I familiar with that catalog? No? Okay. Let me spend a couple days and only listen to them. Right now, I'm going through Janet Jackson's
Oh,
catalog
cool. Nice.
because I'm like, everyone talks about how Janet Jackson,
Mm,
is, one of the greats. I'm like, all right, well, let me go through Janet's catalog and let me listen to it.
that's cool.
And yeah, banger after banger is on there,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, how did I miss this?" And I think just being in music, and I learned this from Gabe too, like, just being able to talk about some of these, B-side tracks that people should know, and then being able to call upon that knowledge when you're working on a show, highlight that B-track song, and then all of a sudden, it blows up and it has a resurgence.
Like
Um
Kate Bush on Stranger
Yeah,
Things.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure. And so, what do you wish that you had known, what you know now, obviously with all the experience that you have behind you, that you wish you knew then, starting out in sync?
Oh, that's a tough question. Um, let's see. I would say I wish I knew a little bit more about the licensing process. Um, and just understanding the business a little bit more. I was so focused on the creative and making sure the creative was good that and, like, I really did pride myself on, like, how well I was as a creative that I wish I had an equal balance of understanding the licensing process and how to do everything, on the business side, the business admin side, um, and so I think there's that, but then also, I wish I had known, like, I have more time than I think. Like, yes, we are moving fast at the NFL, but you still have more time to make sure everything is done correctly, to make sure, you're, again, dotting your T's or wow, dotting your I's and crossing your T's. Um, so yeah, just being patient with the process, not rushing things. If a song isn't cleared, why isn't it going to clear? All right, let's have a backup ready to go. Um, and so, yeah, there's all of that comes into play. But I would definitely say taking more time and realizing I have more time, and then also, understanding the business of things.
For sure. And, like, how do you keep up with maintaining, like, all the relationships and stuff that you've built, and network in the industry as well? Because that's really time consuming too.
Yeah, I mean, that's a job in and of itself. And as I've gotten older, I've realized you really have to plan
Yeah,
your days out and plan when you're meeting up with people, even if it's like a
true.
couple months in advance. Um, but I've realized in LA specifically, I'm not sure how it is anywhere else, but people love a midday lunch or like a coffee meetup.
That's true.
And so there's this culture in LA that I didn't know about, where you can essentially go and get coffee on a Tuesday afternoon at like 11:30, as long as you don't have any calls and you communicate obviously to, your management, um, like you can go and grab a coffee, you can go and grab a lunch. And that is still work because you're still talking about work. You're still building those relationships with people that you work with. Um, but yeah, I would say coffee culture in LA is huge.
Yeah.
Going to shows, even indie shows, like meeting up with people there. Um, you know, showing support to a lot of these artists, it goes a long way, and showing support to like some of these companies, artists, like that goes a really long way and people appreciate that. Um and then also just genuinely building a relationship with people. Like not everyone has to be your friend, but I think you should have a good rapport with people.
Yeah. It's a
Um
people's business, isn't it? The music
yeah,
industry. If you don't like
yeah,
people, you're definitely gonna be stuck. You're probably better going in something like radio or something.
yeah. Exactly. And even then, you may struggle getting a guest on a
Oh,
radio
yeah,
show
that's
if you
true.
don't have a relationship.
What about, your own future? Like, what do you hope to accomplish in the coming years as a music supervisor, both in work and personally? What are some of the goals for you?
Yeah, I would say really building up the music supervision in sports world. I think that is one thing that could have more light shed on it. I think people are so focused on television, scripted television and film, and obviously that has a big media. Um, and it has, like a big platform. But yeah, being someone who works in sports and, hearing people say, "Oh, I didn't even know the NFL had a music supervision team." It's like, wow, why don't people know? Like, this is something that people should know. And so I think in the last couple years, we've done a good job of getting our name out there, but making sure that people know there's someone behind the music that you hear every Sunday, or you hear throughout the week. Um, and then also just working on, like we were talking about earlier, working on, maybe a bigger film at some point. I've worked on a couple features, and that's been really nice, and they have had, like their own theatrical release, but working on, maybe a box office film, but then also working on a story that I really love or would really love to tell. Um, and, I see eye to eye with the director on it. I wanna make sure that that's also uplifted sonically. Um, and then I think personally, just making sure that, I'm healthy, whether that be emotionally, mentally,
Mhm.
physically,
Important, very
spiritually, like,
important.
I just wanna make sure that I
Mhm.
am the healthiest version of myself.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that is, like, priority. So and also the fact that I'm able to, take care of my family. I always like to say, I at the end of the day, I wanna make sure I take care of myself, I take care of my family, and I'm good at my job. I feel like as long as I'm able to do those 3 things, and each one has, like, its own subcategory, as long as I'm good at those things, then I feel like I will, be able to, again, hang my jersey up, because I just feel like that's so important.
Yeah, for sure. Good answer. So, are you into UK football? Do you support any teams?
Uh, yeah, so I'm a Manchester U fan.
Okay, Manchester
Um,
United.
I'm not as well versed in UK football as I should be, and I have a lot of friends that are like, "Man, you're missing out." But
Huge, huge,
this
huge
I've been
culture
saying,
here.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the year that I'm really gonna get into it.
I'm gonna test you on that then. Not that I know much about football. We're gonna circle back round and be like, "What do you know now about it?" So, when people look back at your work years from now, what do you hope that people would say about it? Like, what legacy do you want to leave in the world of music supervision?
I think it's what I just said, like, I want people to be like, "Hey, Joshua was a great person. He he took care of himself. He took care of, his loved ones. The people that he surrounded himself with were always, full of good energy. He always got the job done. He was good at his job, and he had a great taste in music. Like, like
He had a great
those,
taste in music. I love that.
yeah.
Love that.
I feel like telling or hearing someone had a poor taste in music is like one of the worst things you
As a
could ever
music
hear about
supervisor, for
someone.
sure.
Yeah, like that is not something I would ever want to hear about myself.
I think some people might say that about me. I've got some questionable tastes. Insecure.
Well, it's all subjective, right? But I feel like you shouldn't have to explain your taste in music. People either understand it or they don't. But they should always be able to appreciate the music for what it is. Now, if you're placing music that is just completely left field of what is going on, and there is, like a nice contrast you could have. But if the music is just poorly placed, then it's like, yeah, he had a bad taste in music.
Yeah.
And I don't
No
want
one
that to
wants that
happen.
attached to them, do they?
Yeah.
So, wow, what an awesome conversation. Like, I've learned learned a lot about the sports world, and also, all across like scripted TV, and you've had such a really wide range of projects and got to learn from some amazing people. You really truly have been blessed in your career. It's really cool. And I hope to see the film at some point that you're going to be working on, at some point coming out. Do you have any like particular shows, a series coming up with the NFL of music for us to look out for, of anything that you specifically are super proud of that's coming up that you've managed to get in there?
Yeah, so we have a couple spots that are coming out over the next few months. One of them is a youth flag football spot. As many people have heard, flag football will be in the 2028 Olympics, and so it'll now be on the world stage. Um, and so I'm really excited about the music that we've worked hand in hand with our producers on making sure that they like and they feel confident in, and it hits like all of those markers that they want it to hit. And again, that we pride ourselves on hitting, like it's culturally relevant. Anyone from ages 6 to 66 can relate to. It's full of energy. Again, like people can relate to it. People hear it and they're like, oh, I know that track. Even if they don't know the name, they're like, I know that track. And that is a spot that'll be playing again over the next 7 to 9 months, I believe. It may end up getting an extension, but that's something that you see across all platforms, all networks. It is actually like one of our biggest spots. And so, yeah, that's something that I think will be exciting.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, for not just sharing your knowledge, but also, the heart behind everything that you do as well, and some nuggets of wisdom thrown in too. Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. It was I'm glad to be here. Any questions? I hope I answered all the questions well enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ultimate Sync sessions with Amelia McCloskey. To learn how Ultimate Sync Access can connect you with new opportunities, visit ultimatesyncaccess.com. Subscribe for our monthly episodes and follow us on socials for more sync insights. See you next time.